Hey guys, I bet you're wondering why I called you. Well, recently, how I host a meetup, and recently I had a couple members of my meetup ask a bunch of questions that I kind of laughed about at first until I realized that it's not their fault that they don't know this stuff. It's that like I'm an old timer. I've been around Rust for a really long time. I take it for granted that I just know how Rust releases work and like what beta means and what nightly means and like I pay attention to RFCs, so I kind of know what to expect with what's coming up. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be kind of cool if we could share that some of that knowledge that we have gotten over the years with the community as a whole? So I thought we're on that Rust content team that got newly formed last year, and so I thought maybe we could, as a content team that speaks from the language, maybe we could actually do like a little video or a little call or something like that, where we talk about this kind of stuff.
What kind of topics are you thinking?
Well, I had a few ideas. Like one is like, how often is Rust release? Like we have like a thing called a Rust release cadence, but what does that even mean? I've seen some people talk about the Rust release train, and choo choo, sign me up. Where like who decides what goes into a release? Um, One of the things like I saw recently mentioned was support tiers. Like I don't know what that means. One of the funniest things I think is people getting so confused about when we have a patch release. Like the
Mm.
1.92.1 release, and people get really confused by that, and they don't really understand it. And I thought we could talk about how that happens and things that maybe the community could do to help prevent those in the future. Uh, Yeah, and one of the like, how do I even know when a release comes out, and like, how do I know what's in the next release? You know?
Yeah, well, like speaking of trains, like luckily you don't have to wait for like a train to arrive, like bulk delivery of your Rust release. You can actually, I've heard of this website. It's called releases.rs, and it has stuff on there about like upcoming releases and all this stuff. Let me see if I can share the screen and we can talk about it a little bit. Let's see here. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so like if you go to releases.rs, you can see stuff that's coming up and past releases. Um, so yeah, I mean, we could hop around on here a little bit and see what kind of jumps out at us. So I
Looks like
guess,
there's a, it looks like there's a release tomorrow even.
well, yeah, you're right. Wow. Okay. Well, what fortuitous timing. Indeed. Yeah. So like I guess yeah, there's a lot of different categories. There's like language stuff. So, like maybe differences and changes in how the language can be used, compiler things. I don't really understand what would fit in that category. Maybe we talk about it another time. Platform stuff, just mention of like tier two. I think there's multiple tiers. Maybe we talk about that. Libraries. Yeah, I haven't dug into this category before. Stabilized APIs. Yeah, I thought Rust was supposed to be was pretty stable, which is kind of cute. But all right, yeah, I imagine that we should probably talk about this at some point. But yeah, there's a bunch of new things that are coming in here, pretty detailed, and then const. Yeah, I know that people want to use Rust and const ways. I think there's stuff gradually happening here, and oh wow, compatibility notes. Wow, pretty extensive. I don't know where that's coming from. I don't do you guys know anything about compatibility notes or
Pete, I think I don't want to take up too much time this today, so I was thinking maybe we could table a lot of this stuff, and we could actually find somebody that knows more about like what stabilized APIs and platform tiers means. Are there any big changes coming up, in the newest release that might be maybe one of us might know more about that we could talk about?
So the thing that I've heard a lot about like if let chains, and now I see that there's stuff in here about like if let guards, match arms, and irrefutable let patterns. So yeah,
I like
I mean, it'd be cool to learn more about this.
Yeah, I can talk about those. I've been
Oh,
excited for these for a while, actually. Um, yeah, actually, let me just share Playground so I can talk about it. Uh, cool. Yeah. So yeah, those top two items were one of them was irrefutable let patterns. That's a lint that already exists. It's like if I type let x equal foo. Um, this actually does nothing in Rust because if you write an if let, what you're supposed to write is like if let some or some pattern. And there are other languages like Swift where this actually means the same. Writing if let x means the same thing as if let some x in Rust. So it's like it's there to like prevent you from accidentally writing the wrong thing. Let's say if you're used to writing Swift syntax, but it actually prevents you from writing some really nice patterns that come up a lot, especially if you're writing like a calling into like a C API or something like that. So what I've been wanting to write for a long time, and sometimes I do this and I just override the lint because it's so annoying. But like let's say you're calling some function where you get an error code back and then you want to compare the error code, right? And say, oh, if the error code is not 0, then I need to like log an error or something like that. Um, and so this change to the lint actually just lets you write this now, and now it's just idiomatic Rust code. You can just write this. It doesn't warn you that, oh, technically you wrote if let something equals foo. As long as it's like a chain like this, it'll actually just let you write this without warning. So I'm actually going to use this all over the place in my code. Anytime I have to call an API like this. If let guards is another one I'm fairly excited about. At first, when I first saw this feature, I was like, no one's ever going to need this. But then I actually looked through some of my code and I found some places where I needed it. So in my spare time, I work on a window manager for Mac OS, just because like my brain is broken in that way. And there's some code that I found where I'm like uh, I'm calling this function, and I want to like match on, okay, did I get an okay result? Did I get an error? And if I got an error, I wanted to log the error. It's like pretty straightforward, right? That's like the basic version of what I wanted to do. Um, and match is like one of the most powerful features in Rust, match expressions. So I mean, it allows you to do pattern matching. The whole thing is an expression. It has all these fancy features like lets you do nested patterns. It gives you exhaustiveness checking. It's a really nice construct for like systems level programming because you can cover all of the cases and the compiler will actually check for you that you covered all the cases, right? So in this case, what I wanted to do was um, I had this version, but then I realized there are some cases that I log an error that are actually expected. So I wanted to have some like exception to the rule where if it's an error and so certain other conditions are met, I didn't want to log because that's actually going to log every single time. So like in this case, it was there's some special window for the desktop, and what I wanted to write was something like um, you know error. If I got an error, but the element role was like scroll area, then I just thought I don't log, right? Um, and unfortunately, I couldn't use like a nested pattern because roll returns a results. Um, so I couldn't actually write this basically. This is the code that I wanted to write, but I couldn't. So what I ended up having to do was because roll returns a result and like the result type didn't it didn't implement partial eq. I had to write this was like a year ago, right? I had to write this if let OK roll equals element roll, and then like inside of the if let, then I compare the value of roll, and then I have an early return because like that's the only way to make this readable. But then this has to go into helper function so that I can make the early return work. It was really quite painful. A year ago, we stabilized if let chains, which are great. And we already saw an example of an if let chain earlier, but so that allows you to remove one level of nesting here. So I think you'd format it like this. Yeah. But you still have the early return. It's like not quite ideal with something that you want to write. There's other ways of writing this. You can have like another level of nesting where you could have like an else branch or something. But yeah, it wasn't quite clean. And this is still like more of a simplified version of what I wrote. In Rust 1.95, which is actually the release that's coming out tomorrow, now you can just write the case that I wanted to write, except instead of an if guard, we have an if let guard, and I can just erase all of this. So we've removed one level of nesting. We have like a completely flat set of cases, um, and it's just like the if let composes very well with match guards, which already exist. So before I felt like Rust was kind of punishing me for doing the right thing, being careful about handling all of my error conditions correctly. But now I feel like it has my back. It better supports the kind of complicated logic that you find a lot of times in systems programming. And this is not just helpful for error handling. I saw the original RFC, it had an example of using this to parse terminal escape code. So it's useful for parsers. It's useful in a lot of like just kind of weird, complicated situations where you naturally would want to use one set of patterns, but then you have to reach for a different set, and those two things don't compose. Again, it's an example of the language design principle that we talk about at composition, where if you have one feature, it should work together with all the other kinds of features that where it makes sense. So we have if let, we have match guards, which are an if. Yeah, we would like if let to work in all of the places where you can write if, and so oftentimes when we're stabilizing Rust features, we sort of we defer that. We kick the can down the road in the interest of getting something out there for people, like the most useful thing. But then that leaves little gaps, and you discover little paper cuts where you thought these two things would work together, and they don't. So this is rounding out that feature. So we have if let, we have let chains, and now I have if let chains in match guards, which totally rounds out the picture. And it makes Rust a better language for writing intricate logic that stands up to the complexity of production software systems.
Whoa. Okay. Well, that's awesome that you coincidentally and conveniently had all of these examples ready to go and share with us on this spontaneous phone call that Cameron pulled us onto. It's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, um, I guess the fact that you're on the Lang team and you are exposed to these things, it gives you kind of some insight that's really helpful to share in these cases. That's awesome. So yeah, thanks for sharing all that.
Yeah, and I think this was. I'm really glad I called you this week. And but on that note, I do feel like I've taken up kind of enough of your time. Thank you both, but I definitely have. Don't want to overstay my welcome. But hey, how about I call you again in say 6 weeks?
It's an oddly specific time frame, but yeah, sure.
Uh, Ignore that. In the meantime, if anyone comes up with a topic they'd like to hear about, or maybe even speak about on a video like this, just let me know in the comments below. But
Yep.
yeah,
All right. Well, signing off then. So thanks, Cameron. Bye.
See you next
see y'all
time.
later.